Where is my word? I don't know why it makes me do this 3 times before. What about now? There we go. Can you hear me now? TikTok is playing around with me tonight. Now I can see it. I see the little green microphone lighting up now. Okay, great. Fantastic. I just realized I'm matching the background, kind of. All right, where is Miss Erin? Miss Erin, if you're in the chat, darling, please come up. While you people are in the chat, please do all the beautiful things. Repost this live. There are 3 different ways to share it, which is what I'm doing. Repost it. Oh, that's you. Okay. It said H for H, and I didn't know what that meant. I was expecting it to say maybe E for H, but okay. Hello, how are you, Erin?
Good. Let me try and adjust get my camera turned on.
Do you have the background that we sent you?
I do. And
Okay.
I preloaded it, but it's trying now the green.
Listen, that green screen will give you headaches. You show it who's boss.
Oh my goodness, it's like hidden now. It was at the top. Isn't technology fun?
Not at all.
Oh my goodness. It's not even giving me the option now. Why is it doing that?
Relax.
Okay.
Relax. While you're doing that,
we'll just start with this and we'll see if it works.
While you're doing that, if you could please, we work so hard on these backgrounds.
I know. I want to try and get it to work because I had it working and I tested it before I even came in. Let me see if we can get it to go.
For continuity's sake, we don't want to be the only one sitting here with a background, you know? I don't want to be the only one with a background. I'm not special. That's a lie, I am. Anyway, everyone, like the live while Miss Erin gets her technology in.
There's one of them, but it's not the right one.
Everybody like the live, share it out. Please share it out to all of your beautiful, wonderful followers. Let them know that we are here tonight. We're talking to a candidate who is from Iowa. She's running for the Iowa State House District 46.
Yes. Okay.
Iowa.
Still not letting me upload it. It's still not working. Dang it. Okay.
Okay. Well, you know what? I love the person who made the background. I love her very much. She works so hard. But tonight we're going to have to dance alone. We're dancing alone tonight, Thick. I'm so sorry. But you're
Perfect
fine.
ending.
You're beautiful. You're fine. I love the background. I love the paint color. It's gorgeous. You have good taste in decor. I'm just over here sharing this out. People in the chat, while you're in the chat, you're here for Our Vote Counts Town Hall. Remember to be polite in the chat. Be kind to each other. Be nice to me because I will shut this entire thing down. I'm kidding. I will never do that. But like the live, someone wants to know right off the bat, can Iowa afford state representatives? Hey, we're going to get to that, sir. We're going to get to that. But if you're in the chat and you have a question for Erin, any kind of question about state politics, I know a lot of people don't know a lot about state politics, right? I just had this conversation with my daughter today about how judges are chosen in the state. And I said, there are 4 states that appoint judges and there are some that elect them. So people don't know about state politics. If you have a question about that, you can come up and ask Erin, or you can leave the question in the chat and I will ask her myself. Yes, I will ask her myself. And just as we're rolling along the conversation, if you have a question, please feel free to ask. Erin, I hope you have shared this with your followers and you let the people know that you were doing this town hall tonight, honey.
I have, and I sent more out today. So we'll see who ends up straggling in.
I know it's crazy because you have to have TikTok to do it, but we also do later post this on YouTube. So people who don't get to see it tonight will be able to watch it on YouTube. But I would rather they see it live, uncut, fresh and uncut. While I'm talking, I am also looking for my notes. I have so many notes. It's not even funny. I have so many. I need to clear them out is what I need to do. I'm looking for my Erin doc. Okay, I just got too many windows open. This is OVC. I am Ayana Fakir, and tonight we are with Erin is it Helleso?
Helleso, pretty close.
Helleso.
Yep.
Okay, Erin Helleso tonight, and she's running for Iowa State House District 46. That is not that is a state office. That is not a U.S. representative office. So we got a state candidate tonight. We usually get U.S. representatives. We got some state ones in the hopper too. Tonight we got Erin Helleso, Iowa State House. I think we have filled up almost our entire States of the Union calendar. We've had candidates from all over the country, and tonight we're visiting Iowa. I am in Ohio. I've never been to Iowa, but I have talked to people from Iowa, and it sounds like a very lovely place. Erin, I am going to just give a little bit of introduction.
Okay.
You are a licensed clinical social worker and community-centered professional with nearly 3 decades of experience in mental health, family systems, mediation, and therapeutic services. You practice with a consulting firm in Johnston, Iowa, and you hold multiple licenses across several states. Erin, for the people who are meeting you for the first time tonight, please tell us all why you decided to run for office and give us a little bit more background about yourself. Erin,
I'm here.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you decided to run for office.
Well, working in human services, I didn't feel like I was getting enough punishment and abuse. So I decided, why not go ahead and run for state office? No, I am running because being a social worker and working in our systems, from insurance with Medicaid, which is your state-based, state-funded insurance, to individuals of many different communities, mental health, the unhoused, you name it. I've also had the opportunity to get involved with policy and the influence that our federal requirements end up trickling down to the state level. And a good friend of mine who is an attorney, he used to be the head of Iowa's Medicaid and Health and Human Services, joked with me and said, you should really run for office someday. And I said, you know what? Why not?
You're like, yes, I think I will. And your district, just a little bit about your district, it includes parts of Dallas and Polk counties. It is represented by Dan, is it Gelbach?
Yep, that's our incumbent.
Yes, he's your incumbent. He took office in January 2023. Your area has gone through a little bit of redistricting, but he's a Republican and you are running on the Democrat ticket, right?
Yes.
Okay. Your area is primarily, how do I put this nicely, white? And is it rural or urban? I'm not seeing that in my notes.
It's a little bit of both. So we're actually on the outskirts. We're suburbs of the Des Moines Metro, which is our capital. And then a part of that district, when they redistricted it in 2022, also encompasses some smaller towns and some rural area as well too. So it kind of expands out. So we have a mix of both.
If you were to win this election, you would be representing urban and rural voters, right?
Yes.
Now that's something. We're going to talk about that. I forgot to introduce who we are. This is OVC. How could I forget to introduce the people who pay me? Not really. This is a volunteer job. Our vote counts. That's why we're here. We're a nonpartisan coalition of citizens from across the country united by a shared commitment to empowering voters and elevating political candidates who embody integrity, inclusion, and accountability. Our vote counts is more than a name. It is a promise, a movement, and a rallying cry for a stronger democracy. Together, we're shaping the future, one informed vote at a time. We represent candidates of integrity, which I believe that you are, Erin, just looking at your background. A little bit of an icebreaker for you, Erin.
Sure.
If your state, right? Think about your state of Iowa. Did you grow up in Iowa?
I moved here in high school. So I actually grew up in Minneapolis.
Okay.
So a larger city, and then we migrated here. But I've been here for quite a while.
So you're still in the Midwest. If the Midwest had a music playlist, what 3 songs would be on that playlist?
Ooh,
Like,
that's a hard one.
What would you put on a Midwest playlist?
So we have to do some Prince.
Yes, of course.
Like we have to. He originated, he lived in Chanhassen. I lived like just a few miles from where his compound was.
Ooh.
So have to represent that part of it and have to have some Prince go in there.
Okay.
I would also say probably when it comes to songs, we'd have to do maybe, I would say a little Slipknot since that's Iowa. Slipknot is actually from Iowa, believe it or
Wow.
not. And they live, like one of the members with Kelly Osbourne lives in Iowa right now.
I was not expecting you to say that. Okay. Wow. All right.
Those at least would be two of them. A third one, I don't know. I'd have to think about that for a minute. But yeah, I mean, those would be the two major ones that I think I would pick to represent the Midwest.
Slipknot and Prince. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Because we're in the Midwest. Cleveland is in the Midwest, but it's kind of in the North. But it still has that same gritty factory, kind of gray, cold air, blue collar life, hard concrete jungle kind of living. Yeah. Okay.
So the joke is that when people find out that we're from Iowa, they always say, "Oh, you mean Ohio?"
Oh my gosh.
So people kind of make that assumption all the time. Actually, there's a local store that has T-shirts that joke about that.
You know what? Because you don't hear too much about Iowa. You don't have,
That's right.
You don't have major sports teams, which is a bummer. Not that it makes a difference because ours kind of suck right now anyway. But you don't have baseball, football, basketball. You have Des Moines. I've heard of Des Moines. I almost drove to Des Moines once. Almost came this close. Me and some friends were at a work training in Kansas City, and we got on the wrong freeway or something, and we almost drove to Des Moines. But you got there's some things. What is Iowa famous for? What's Iowa got?
So we are famous for our agriculture. We're a major agriculture state. So that is probably one of our number one industries between corn and soybeans and things like that. We also have a huge amount of pig and chicken farming as well as cows. And so farming is a major, major industry for Iowa. And Iowa's been severely impacted by the tariffs and a lot of the federal changes that have taken place when it comes to our farmers.
Yeah, I bet. I think it was the other day somebody said that it's either the fourth or fifth month in a row that China hasn't bought soybeans from the United States.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and the farmers have been promised a bailout, but I hear that hasn't come yet either. So
yeah.
How are and I know this has nothing to do with what I'm about to ask, but how are people coping?
There's a lot of advocacy, a lot of protests. So our legislature just started on January 12th, and we're a part-time, we're not a full-time year-round legislature. We're only in session for roughly 14-ish weeks, depending on the year. And so it's like a race from, the beginning of January until the end of April or around that time, depending on if it goes over for its session time to try and get legislation addressed and passed. And that includes a lot of state-based relief and like rules and laws and stuff that have to do with that. So we're watching things very closely, and there's a lot of advocacy at our Capitol right now.
Do you hear like the governor going to the press and saying, "Hey, our economy is suffering. We don't know what we're going to do"? Listen, no. I was surprised that my governor, who is a diehard Republican, was like, "Hey, we're suffering. You're about to take away their, because the TPS for Haitians ended, and there's a particular town in Ohio that depends on that labor and the infrastructure that comes with that." And he said, "I don't know what we're going to do. They're going to be devastated economically, and we have no plan for them, nothing to bail them out. And I don't know what we're going." And I said, there is something you could do. What you're doing right now. You're using your mouth. You could do that. but it seems like they're not interested in kind of going against the party line and
No. So Governor Kim Reynolds is basically our president's minion. She's not only replicating everything that's going on at the federal level, she has instituted her own version of Doge in Iowa. Like she's literally copying our president's playbook and is lying to the public saying that everything's wonderful and our economy is amazing when we have over $1 billion deficit right now that we have to try and make up this legislature. So she is actually not running again.
Back it up. Beep,
Yep.
beep, 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 beep. Did you say over $1 billion deficit
Yes.
in the state of Iowa? Just the state of Iowa.
Yep.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Let's get to that, because what is your plan? Because I know you have a plan to address that when you get into office. What's the first thing you're going to implement? And this is actually the first category, economic development.
Yeah.
What is your plan to help bring that deficit down in the state of Iowa?
Well, I think the biggest thing is looking at where are we wasting money? Like where are programs that maybe are not necessary? There's a lot of initiatives that our current governor, who's been in office for roughly 9 years at this point and has been very ineffective. That's why we have the deficit we have. They've cut a lot of taxes and a lot of funding opportunities that were coming through the state to support, I guess a good example would be property taxes are a major issue in our state right now. I think they are nationwide, but in Iowa, we are seeing them rise massively, especially in a lot of the suburban areas, and families can't afford it. And so, they're planning on cutting more taxes, which those property taxes fund our municipal services and they fund our schools here. So, there's been cut after cut after cut. And it's to go through and look, where are we bleeding right now? And what do we need to really reassess? And are there new streams of revenue we can potentially bring in? So Iowa is one of the few states that does not have THC legalized. And so all of the states around us have THC legalized in some form for public or recreational use. And so a lot of people from Iowa regularly leave the state because we're not huge, and go visit our neighbors and pay tons of money to those states to access it, and then come back to Iowa. And so one of the things that has been a very, very prominent suggestion and something that's got a lot of support in our state, just unfortunately our lawmakers don't seem to understand that currently. We have a supermajority in both the House and Senate with Republicans right now. And so they're really struggling to grasp the concept that we need to do other things to bring in revenue to our state. And just that one thing and the taxes and the additional money that we brought in from just allowing that would help make up a big portion of that, as well as help continue to keep more revenue streaming into our state.
There's probably a lot of prejudice surrounding the use of just THC alone.
Yeah.
Even for medicinal purposes, people are probably thinking, there are going to be all these, lettuce heads running around and everybody's going to be addicted to the devil's lettuce and nobody's going to get any work done. And that's just not the case. That's not the case. I mean, listen, I could eat a bunch of Twinkies and be bouncing off the ceiling. All right. I'm not, whatever, but it has certain properties. We understand that it has certain properties that can be good for mental illnesses, but also chronic joint pain, fibromyalgia, things of that nature. But you can make money from it.
Right.
That's something the state of Ohio has done, but it faces a lot of prejudice, and the government is trying to crack down on the sale of it and what to do with the tax money. And it's like, we need the tax revenue. Like you said, property taxes are out of control. So that's not something that you would be willing to change, though? You don't have a policy for changing property taxes. You want to leave that alone?
Well, I don't know that we can reduce property taxes. I think it's the rate of inflation with property taxes. So I think that's the bigger issue. And one of the things that Iowa struggles with that we're seeing again across the nation, like any other state, is that we have a lot of large commercial producers coming in, buying up homes, increasing, the sale of those homes and the rent and everything. And what's happening is that it's having a huge impact on top of just the natural rate of inflation that has been out of control. That is causing the cost of living to go up so significantly. I mean, just the construction to build a new home, is so high, and the values with that. So, we have a lot of homes that are maybe valued significantly over what they're probably worth at this point, just because of that. And so it's really taking a look at what is an appropriate calculation for it, what should be assessed for those property taxes. And then instead of cutting property taxes, really stabilizing them. And then, like I said, bringing in other streams of revenue that offset maybe the demand on those property taxes when it comes to funding those things like EMS and fire and police and extra funding for education or other services that we may need.
So you don't think the state should shift more school funding off of property taxes and onto other places in the budget, or do you think property taxes are enough to?
So property taxes aren't. So Iowa has a very interesting situation. So I know a lot of states access voucher programs. They're different from state to state for education. But Iowa recently, so in 2023, they passed it and implemented it. In 2025, this fall is when it fully hit, where they did a voucher program where you can take, it's just a hair under $8,000 this school year, of money away from public schools and pay it to private schools. And Iowa has a very, very large concentration of private schools throughout the state, but specifically in the Des Moines metro area. And so what's happening is that public schools are losing that funding, but there's also absolutely no accountability for those vouchers. So if we pull more money from property taxes away from our public schools, we have schools that are already struggling and hurting because of this. Mm-hmm. That is probably one of the only guaranteed funds going to public schools at this point in time. So we can't really take anything away from property taxes at this point. When it comes to a limit, lowering them. I know that there's a lot of things this legislature that they've proposed, both on the Republican and the Democrat side, to, see if there isn't a solution to this, or to give some tax breaks or some refunds. I know that there is legislation from the Democrats that instead of a $2,000, they're going to do a $10,000 credit when you purchase a new home for first-time home buyers to try and help offset that. So, there's things that they're trying to do to help with it, but over the long run, I think that's what the concern is, because there are people who have been in their homes for, decades and may not even have a house payment, but their property taxes are through the roof and they're struggling to pay it because they're on, limited income.
And if they can't pay it, then
they lose their house.
They lose their house. Yeah. Oh, wow. And also small businesses make up about 99% of all businesses in Iowa, which is, I think, pretty unique. But people are still, like you said, struggling with taxes and staffing and red tape. What would you do as a state legislator to make it easier for local businesses to hire, to make it easier for local businesses to grow and hire?
Well, one of the things that's been hurt by our Republican administration, while they have supported and said, hey, we have all these wonderful things and programs to support small businesses, Iowa has gone right along with the rhetoric of cutting a lot of programs for small businesses due to the restriction of DEI.
Oh, come on.
And due to other restrictions that they've had. So there's a lot of things that have now transformed. It hasn't taken it away, but it's transformed it. And then there's a lot of limits in those small business opportunities and funding that needs to be expanded. Iowa is a lot of small businesses because of the farming industry. Those are all small businesses, right? They operate as LLCs or S corps. And so there's that, as well as a lot of, because of the population of our state, we're just over 3 million. Our capital has roughly 500,000 in the metro area, maybe a little more, but depending on how big you go, but it's not an overly populated state. So when it comes to big business, we do have a lot of large corporations here in Iowa, but it's not their home. Mm-hmm. And since COVID has happened and the virtual work from home opportunity has come up, a lot of the businesses that are present, access employees nationally. So small businesses really are a big focus of Iowa. And I think it's looking at employers that while we don't want to cut taxes to stop funding our local resources and municipalities and schools, we also need to look for tax breaks and relief for small businesses, especially if they have a lower number of employees or a limited payroll, to really help eliminate the burden that paying those taxes creates. Because that is a lot of times what breaks a small business, is those expenses when it comes to payroll taxes and the other taxes and expenses that come with it. And so expanding grant opportunities or loan opportunities with low interest rate, or maybe some kind of forgiveness, as well as maybe some other types of programs when we have maybe certain criteria with the size of that business to help with employees so that they can retain and hire employees.
Okay, I like that response. And again, if anyone in the chat has a question, you can leave it in the chat, or you can come up and ask Erin directly. Also, if you're in the chat, please like. Let's get us up to 5,000 likes. Leave some comments in the chat. We appreciate the engagement. Also, if you would like to, Erin, are you allowed to accept gifts on this account?
I believe I can.
Okay. Gift our wonderful candidate. You don't have to gift me, but I appreciate it. I'm trying to send my daughter to college. So Erin, you have spent your career working in mental health and family systems. What changes would you push for at the State House to make therapy and counseling more affordable and easier to access in your district? So affordability and accessibility.
So we have our district is a very wealthy district for the majority of it. So there's a lot of privilege in our district. And so a lot of people in our district have access to resources, but there's enough families, and there's a lot of families in our area that simply don't and fall through the cracks. As well as statewide. So while I may practice and live in my area, I mean, I serve people in multiple states. Mm-hmm. So that means throughout the state of Iowa. And one of the things that I would do to make mental health services, as well as just healthcare services in general, more accessible is I would really like to see Iowa set more requirements and expectations with health insurance companies to retain medical providers in the state. We have a major problem in our state with retaining qualified medical providers across the spectrum of services. Mental health services are a medical service. We bill insurance just like any other health care service does. And so not just community-based mental health, but also facility-based needs, emergency inpatient services, intensive outpatient services, all of that needs additional funding.
Why do you think the state is bleeding talent?
So many reasons. One, it's a lot of the restrictions that we have related to our healthcare that have been passed in the last couple of years, specific to abortion and OBGYN based services. Okay. Yes. Those alternative reproductive services
right.
That happen, as well as, we have one of the stricter laws. We don't have a complete ban, but it's a 6-week rule.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So before you even know you're pregnant most of the time. Yeah. And so that is a big issue. And so we see a lot of providers leaving, as well as we don't have any required floor rates. So for example, Illinois just passed a bunch of legislation specific to mental health, where they have mandatory floor rates for all insurance companies. And what that means is it's the minimum they're allowed to reimburse a provider. So what happens in the state of Iowa, because we don't have that other than with Medicaid, providers don't get paid, and they don't get paid well.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So you can fight claims. So I'm a health insurance, biller. And so I have claims that I've never collected on. I have services that get clawbacks. And, I've billed the service, got the money, and they go back through and decide, 2 years later, I don't want to pay for that anymore. And then they just take it out of your payments. Wow. We have a lot of issues with insurance industry in our state and how they treat providers, as well as the fact that there's no guarantee of the reimbursement, on top of the fact that those reimbursement rates are so incredibly low. And so providers simply leave the state and go find other opportunities that pay significantly more.
Is that one of the reasons why you practice in other states, because of the billing problems, or is it just the the treatment of providers. I know that some states, they're not exactly, I don't want to say they don't invest, they're not investing in the type of healthcare that you practice. They're not investing in mental
Right.
wellness and mental health care the way they should. And so,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's a problem. I mean, and a good portion of Iowans are on Medicaid, just because of, Iowa's population. And so, with a large portion of people in our state on Medicaid, the state funded services, even there, it's a struggle to get access. Providers don't want to take Medicaid. They don't want to take Medicaid in our state because it is a pain to not only get enrolled with Medicaid as a provider, it takes several months and several hoops you have to jump through and red tape just to get approved. And then it's just getting paid. It's impossible to get paid half the time.
Yeah.
So we just don't have providers once they're in the state that even want to take state-based insurance. And that's a good portion of Iowans' insurance.
My gosh. Okay. And I mean, rural hospitals must be taking a hit in Iowa right now. And
Yes.
what's your plan to deal with the I guess the closures? I mean, I don't know how at the State House they're currently dealing with it, but what's your plan to help rural areas sustain at least some kind of emergency treatment clinic, like an urgent care or something like that?
Well, I mean, that's a major issue. We have several clinics that have had to close just because of, funding cuts and then the upcoming cuts that are supposed to come through federally by 2028.
Right.
I mean, those are going to trickle through here fairly soon and impact providers. So we have a lot of small rural hospitals that are closing. We actually just had a major clinic in the Ottumwa area, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from here, from this area, announced that one of their major clinics in town was closing down.
Wow.
I mean, it's not the only clinic, but it's one of the primary clinics that people in that town use. And it's a fairly populated area and it's rural. So you're too far to want to travel to Des Moines or anywhere else to have to come get your health care.
Exactly.
And so what happens is people just don't get health care then. They just don't go. And so there's a major, major issue with that. And so it's trying to see what funds, again, it's looking for where do we have wasted money or where did we make too many cuts? Where do we need to pull back in and start building resources? And so it's pulling those opportunities in. It's setting those floor rates with these insurance companies we have in Iowa so that hospital providers, clinic providers are actually getting proper reimbursement so they can sustain operations. And then setting requirements and limits on these insurance providers because they are the backbone of these clinics. That's what's paying these clinics. And so it's setting expectations with them too about can you recoup money after so much time? Putting limits on them, premiums for health insurance to make sure people are actually insured, making sure that these health insurance companies can't make a raise bigger than, say, 5% or over a certain amount. And so when we address healthcare in general, as well as insurance access and benefits, that actually has a trickle-down effect to our hospital systems on top of state funds and accessing federal funds if we can get that approved at the federal level to help fund these rural clinics.
So, Erin, let me ask you this, and I think I know the answer, but I don't want to assume. What do you think are the odds? What are the odds, or what do you think the people of Iowa and the government of Iowa, how do you think they would feel about having a universal healthcare system, a national standard of healthcare and treatment? Do you think that would go over well in the state of Iowa?
Oh, yeah, yes. Because we have so many people that are self-employed and we have so many people that are small businesses and people on Medicaid. In fact, I mean, one of the things, and I know some states have tried it, it's been a trial and error, issue. But I mean, we can expand Medicaid access because while we do get part of our funding from federal dollars through CMMS, we also get Medicaid funds from the state level. And so if we properly fund Medicaid services or healthcare services, we can actually expand those so that more people can have access to affordable and appropriate healthcare. I mean, states on their own are really influential in their own healthcare. So while we talk about universal systems on a federal level, the states actually have more control and influence over those health insurance companies and those health plans than at the federal level. The ACA is just a framework. It's really just a framework of minimum standards that we have to operate by. And, anybody who looks at these really high deductible health insurance plans knows that. Okay. There's plenty of Americans as well as Iowans that have been caught in that catch-22 of you go in for the preventative exam and it becomes diagnostic. And now it's not covered by your preventative service.
Correct.
So I think at the state level, if we address the access to health insurance as well as the funding limits and levels from health insurance companies to properly reimburse our providers and our clinics and put limits on that, as well as, like I said, other types of stuff, I think we could do a similar concept of some type of expanded or universal healthcare in Iowa.
Okay, and I only framed it that way because anytime you say universal or national, people think socialism.
Yeah.
And that's a boogeyman. That's an evil, you don't want that. And so you kind of have to reframe it. You have to call it something else. You have to address it in a different way so that people don't think that they're getting what they're getting. And they think that it's a novel idea that, makes sense when it's really just socialized healthcare, which a lot of the world receives. And it seems to me that the United States would benefit from. I don't know exactly how it would work. I haven't worked out the kinks of a plan or anything, but it seems to me like if most of your state is on Medicaid, I mean, they would probably transition easily to something like that, right?
Well, yeah. And I think, when we look at generally speaking, I mean, I worked for managed care, which is the management of Medicaid through private insurance companies. I worked for managed care for 4 years in the state of Iowa when it was implemented. So seeing behind the scenes on how insurance companies actually work, because it was for a large commercial insurer. So we had to deal with all types of insurance, not just Medicaid. And so understanding the contracts and what they do and how they work and the politics involved with that, it's really not a huge shift, believe it or not. It really has to do with funding and accountability.
Correct.
We already manage state-based healthcare through contracts, okay, third-party payers. We can still keep insurance companies and the option for purchasing your own private or additional policies if you want to, and employers if they want to still provide an alternative. Germany has a similar system. We have countries that have models where this works, where you can have a combination, a hybrid system. And so it really wouldn't be that difficult. It would be a lot of obviously change and work, but it really wouldn't be that big of a shift because we already have systems in place today that work like that to make that changeover. It's really just a willingness to look at the funding and to make it an option.
All right. I like that response. And I'm trying to find my, I want to do a rapid fire style of questions for this next segment. And let's see, here we go. State funding for public schools, increase, freeze, or cut?
Oh, increase.
Okay.
Our schools are hurting right now because of the vouchers. And, they have our voucher program locked down where our state auditor can't even audit the program to know how much money is going out and what it's being spent on. They passed a law last year preventing our auditor from doing that. And
where is the brilliance in that? I don't understand.
So we can't even touch that until they change the laws. We can't even look at that. So what we need to do is look at how do we increase funding and how do we expand that for public schools?
Okay. Voluntary water quality programs, working or not?
Definitely not working. Iowa has major issues environmentally with our water quality. And in fact, in the Des Moines, Iowa area this winter, a little over a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, we have severely high nitrates in our water. And so we actually have to use special filters in order to drink our water.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Flint, Michigan, a long time ago when they had their water crisis. We have a major water crisis in the state of Iowa because they removed all of the monitoring systems from our waterways and from where we get our drinking water. And so there's no way to address that and monitor it. And we're an agriculture state. So, we need to have monitoring systems.
Iowa, hello. Hello, Iowa. What are you doing? What is going on? What is with the removal of the oversight and you can't audit things and you can't get numbers and what's happening?
I don't know the exact motives behind it. I think only the people that were in the room when those decisions were proposed probably know. I'm pretty sure it's connected to a lot of the issues we have with big ag. So not our small regional farmers, but like large corporations that are coming in and selling products. And then in addition to that, Iowa is like a data center farm. So we have over 100 data center buildings in our state because of our climate and our landscape. And so it's very supportive of data centers. So we have like every company you can think of in Iowa with data centers. And now they're wanting to put in AI processing centers. So Meta, Apple, Microsoft, Google, you name it. They're all in the Des Moines metro area, as well as Cedar Rapids and other areas around our state. And they're not only do we have over, I want to say 117 or maybe 115 buildings, data center buildings themselves, they're continuing to grow and expand. Like there's no plan to stop.
So are people complaining about like the noise? Or I know that data centers, they have to do something with the water that they use. And in Ohio, they want to just put the water into the Ohio water system, just flush it out there. And the Ohio EPA is like, no, 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 no. And the people are like, no, 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 no. But it just seems like in the end, these corporations always win. So are people coming to the State House and complaining about these data? So they are. So
it's a big, big deal, especially since I think Meta and Google, or maybe it's Apple, but I thought it was either Meta or Google, because Meta has a huge data center. My husband actually worked for the data center for several years. So we kind of know the ins and outs of how they actually operate in the facility side of it. And so, what we understand and what we know is that there's really, other than your general EPA guidelines, there's really no oversight or rules related to data centers. They don't really, I don't believe they even have to pay taxes for the land that they have. They have tax breaks.
I'm sorry, what?
They get tax breaks for the land that they have, and they have a massive amount of land.
So they're not paying property taxes.
To my knowledge, they're not. I'm sure there's maybe some areas where they are paying, but to my knowledge, that's one of the big issues right now in Iowa, is not just the impact on our water quality, because we already have a problem with our water quality, but the expansion of these centers and the use of AI, because our electrical grids and our power infrastructure here in Iowa, as well as in the country, is just very outdated. It hasn't been properly updated to support the resources that these buildings and that these data centers are using. If we can update the infrastructure for it, we could probably work out a solution where they could operate and be environmentally appropriate, and there be accountability, and they can pay taxes, since these are billion-dollar companies in our state.
So is that your plan? I know these are supposed to be rapid fire, but I'm interested in this. Is that your plan for?
So our Democratic candidate for governor is actually our state auditor. He's our only Democratic elected official in office right now for the state. And so he's running for governor, and there's a couple of different candidates. He's got a fairly strong shot at getting it. Right now he's showing ahead of Republican candidates by just a hair. So there is a chance that, with some of the things that he's also brought into it, with his knowledge from being our state auditor of programs, that we potentially could do some work with these larger companies to bring in money and resources to communities where they're placed, and to fund certain initiatives, scholarships, whatever it is that they decide to do, to give back and to put money back into communities and to support things like schools and other stuff, as well as to address like contributing maybe potentially to the upgrades that might be needed in order for their facilities to run. Or, this is more of a national issue, but like deprivatizing our utilities.
And okay, so help me understand this, right? These companies are given these tax abatements, so they will do business in your state, right? And so they come into your state and they're taking up all this land, and they're operating, they're making money, they're obviously putting money into your economy. How is the economy still over $1 billion in debt?
That has to do with a lot of very wasteful spending, a lot of very significant tax cuts that our supermajority Republican government has put into place. When it comes to the decisions they've made over the years. and funding programs that just are absolutely unnecessary and hiding money. I mean, we have to look at the voucher program. It's like several $100 million that is going towards this school voucher program that is unaccounted for and unaccountable. We can't look at it. I mean, that's a big chunk of what our deficit is coming from.
The voucher program.
Yeah. I mean, it's not all of it by any means, but it is a big contributor.
Okay, so you've mentioned wasteful spending in these programs a few times. What other programs do you think would be cut? Like if you were, day one, your proposal would be to cut what 3 programs from the state budget? Just take a red pen and just go rip, rip, rip.
I would definitely be looking at the amount of money that is put into, because there's a lot of stuff. I would definitely be looking at money that is put into like the big business side of it, right? I think it's less about cutting the actual, it's more about collecting the revenue. We have so many breaks that we have given companies. Like I said, we have these billion-dollar companies operating, taking up land with tax cuts and free, like not being, a contributing, organization, right? Yes, they're hiring people, but when they hire people for these data centers, they're not hiring thousands of people. Mm-hmm. They're hiring 50
people. Yeah.
Right. They're not hiring huge amounts. So there are these massive buildings that in your mind think, oh my gosh, look at that big building. There must be all these people. No, it's data center. It's servers. Mm-hmm. It's not, there's like 2 people working on that building, and some admins running around during the day and some contractors to build it. Right. So, that's what's going on. And so like those companies, while they do bring some employment and some jobs in, they're not hiring the volume of people that you would think they are for being such a large organization compared to maybe other larger businesses that we should be attracting and bringing into the state. So, I mean, the hard part is that we are so in debt. I don't know that there is any programs we can cut anymore because it's going to, like, we have cut SNAP funding significantly. It's a big issue in our state. We have reduced Medicaid so that people who need it can't get access to it. We've cut unemployment benefits severely. And the work requirements with that are sometimes a major hurdle for a lot of people. Like they have cut all of the services that we need and reduced them down to a bare minimum and are planning more cuts for the future. And then are creating policies around funding a lot of big business and big corporate tax breaks on top of it in our state. So we're bleeding money. We're not really bringing anything in. And so we have to go back and look at all of these tax cuts and tax breaks that have been created. And we have to reassess that. And we have to start working with these organizations and companies that are here that we know can afford to pay that.
So what do you think as a state lawmaker, potentially, if you go to these corporations and say, hey, we're proposing to pass this law where we're going to cut back on your tax abatement. We're going to cut it down from 30 years to 10 years. What do you think will be the response from these corporations? Do you think they'll go, oh, okay, you're doing it for a good reason, so that's fine? Or do you think they'll go, well, we're packing up our stuff and we're getting the heck out of here?
Well, I think it's hard to move a data center.
Right.
They've got the buildings and the money and the infrastructure already invested, and they're building more. So I think it's going to be a negotiation. I don't think it's going to be a simple answer of like, we're just going to change it for you and you're going to start paying taxes. But I think that's where we start getting creative and working with them on what are what are things that we can phase in for them to start paying taxes on that, as well as for, like I said, other funding, other opportunities that they can start giving back into communities or start paying when it comes to things to support small business, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Like, are there grants or loans or things or like certain stuff that they can give or that they can provide to support our communities, right? Or is it that, again, are they going to have some level of responsibility for updating at the cost for updating our systems, right? Our electrical grid or our infrastructure or the energy use, whatever form of energy that they're going to be using for that, or maybe our water quality, maybe there's some responsibility there.
Okay. So let me see. How would you support, see if I can ask this in a way, how would you support public safety initiatives that don't see people being, I don't know if okay. I don't know if ICE is a large problem in your state. Has ICE invaded your state yet?
Well, the superintendent of Des Moines Public Schools was arrested by ICE. That was a national story.
I was trying to be sensitive about it.
I mean, it sounds like maybe there was some reasons for there to be a concern with his background, but as far as the actual actions that were taken, I don't believe that was appropriate, in the manner that it was carried out. I think that could have been handled much differently.
He has pled guilty to a weapons charge, but one of the issues was that the background check, right?
Yes. Apparently he lied on his resume, and it was the hiring agency, so the placement, the recruiting agency, that actually had helped recruit him was complicit in that. And so it was multiple hands involved in that situation from what I understand. Okay. I don't want to misspeak on that because I don't know all the details or the inside of it, but that's what I understand. And
I know that the government said that you're not supposed to trust the I-Verify system, which is ridiculous because that is their system.
I-9 system.
They tell employers to use to verify if someone should be working in the U.S. or not lawfully. So what do you think you can do at the state level to prevent immigrants from being, hassled, harassed? Do you think the state should be working with the federal government, or should the state just be like, okay, you have a job to do it without our help?
That is something that is a big debate right now because we have had ICE coming into communities and we have had people spotted driving around. We're right next to Minnesota. We're just south of, Minnesota on their southern border. And so it has come down and started to expand into Iowa. And while Iowa is a very Caucasian state, it has a high amount of refugees.
Yes, it does.
Especially in the Des Moines area, but we have a very high refugee and very diverse sector of refugee families and services here, as well as a very high amount of undocumented workers that come as farm workers because of our agriculture and the meatpacking plants that we have. So
right. I was going to say Cedar Rapids is one of the because I'm Muslim and I do eat halal. One of the biggest halal meat packing plants is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of migrant workers working in these plants. And if something happens to that workforce, like, what do you do? Like, you go into the community and say, hey, we got all these jobs available. If you guys want to come work, come on. Or is that the reason why they have the migrants working in the factories, because they can't get people from the community to come in?
Well, they can't. Like, these aren't jobs that people are knocking the doors down saying, let me have the job. Like, there's a reason why that people are being hired for these roles and positions is because nobody else wants them. Mm-hmm. So it has to do with like access to those employees that want to actually work in those industries. And a lot of it ends up being through workers that come up for seasonal work or on temporary work permits, and they overstay those visas, or they have applied and they're waiting, right, for the lottery. And so, there's a lot of issues in Iowa related to immigration and the impact of that. So ICE is a very big issue. So while we haven't seen the level that unfortunately Minnesota and the Minneapolis-St. Paul area is dealing with right now related to ICE and the horrible things that are going on there, it is a concern right now. We have a lot of residents very, very worried for their safety and, taking a lot of extra precautions. It's a conversation we have ongoing on a regular basis. And I used to work inside our Polk County Jail, which is the largest jail in Iowa for the Des Moines area, as a social worker. And so, we have a unit specifically for ICE detainees. And that was before this happened. And so anybody who was legitimately picked up, like, we had certain protocols because it's a jail. So we get everybody, right? Because you're awaiting your sentencing, or you're awaiting, placement or transfer to another facility. And so in working in corrections and working in these units and seeing this and talking to these families, I've had to go interview people who are sitting and waiting in a detention unit in our Polk County Jail because they're waiting to be, sent to the whatever country or another state for their hearings, whatever it is that they're
Right.
wherever they're at in that process. And it's very, very difficult for them because of what that does for the families, because they may be the only person sending money back to that family.
And I had this on mute because I have a child in the background who's having some food delivered. Not just for her, but for me too. But anyway. But yeah, I appreciate that response. I really do. I don't even know. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. And
I don't think there's anything when it comes to the federal government and the use of force that we've seen. I don't think it would matter if we pushed back as a state and if our local authorities said no more, because it's just they're coming in with such an aggressive force.
Yes,
there's
they are.
there's
Yeah.
no reasoning, there's no working with it, there's no negotiating. It's just they're even detaining their own ICE agents who are off duty. I mean, there's no reason with this. And I even question if a lot of these people are legitimate ICE or if they're just not people, the theories that people have had of like, these are just a lot of like random people they've hired and gave them a uniform and said, go for it. Right. No actual training or law enforcement understanding of what the laws are. So there's a lot of concerns with that and just the legitimacy of the people doing these things.
And my concern is also it's the local economy, but it's the families, like you said, who are left behind. This affects schools. It affects stores. The infrastructure is built around the people. So if the people are being taken away, then there's no need for all of these other things, right? There's no need for all of these schools and banks and clinics and things. What do the local economies do? And so it seems to me like the state might want to work together with the federal government to say, hey, leave us a couple of them.
And that it's so funny because it brings me to it's like an old movie. I want to say from like maybe the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's a movie called A Day Without a Mexican.
Oh, I haven't heard about this.
Look it up and watch it. It's an old day. It's been around for a while, but it's literally like, it's a documentary style, but it's a movie. It's kind of a realistic comedy of like what would happen if one day all of the immigrants in California like disappeared.
Oh, wow.
And so it's satire, but it's not. And so while it's an older movie and probably has some politically incorrect references in it, it is really a look at like what would happen, if this took place. And they in this movie that they made, like, again, like I said, it's kind of a dark comedy, but like it literally delves into what would happen if you just woke up one day and everybody was gone and all of the things that would happen and shut down and the industries that would close and like what people would do. I mean,
well, it feels like we're moving a little bit. In some places, they might be moving towards that. I know in Minnesota, they did a sort of like a blackout of shopping and because people are having to stay home to go to school, they're doing school from home and all that. And it seems to me like, yeah, at some point we're going to get there where it's just like a bunch of little ghost towns or something, it's very unfortunate.
yes.
You're in Iowa and you've mentioned that, again, if anyone has questions, please come up and ask them. I don't want to be doing all the talking, but I will. I will do all the talking. But Iowa has had more flooding and extreme weather in the past few years. What would you push for at the State House to help your district fix drainage, roads, and bridges so communities aren't constantly dealing with damage and repairs? Which I know it's kind of, when you got a tight budget, people aren't really thinking about repairing roads. But if you don't repair these things to withstand the next big disaster, then the next big disaster is going to be bigger than it perhaps needs to be. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that we're seeing and experiencing, like a lot of other communities, with hurricanes and earthquakes and the fires, that have taken place throughout the country, is that, there's a heavy dependence on federal funding from FEMA to come in and to repair that stuff, right, when these things happen. And so it's working with the federal government, when we have these natural disasters, to make sure that they're actually declared like federal disaster areas so that they can receive that assistance. Because I don't think that is always happening, as well as it's also working with insurance companies. One of the issues we've had, I think, across the country, but I noticed just myself, this year, and a lot of people have commented about, is not just the rise of property taxes, but my homeowner's insurance. My homeowner's insurance skyrocketed this year, and we've never had a claim. And it's because of all of the issues we've had that are weather related in the state as well as across the country. I mean, we've had more derechos, which I never heard of a derecho before 2018.
And you don't have any control over it. You don't have any control over the derechos or the El Niños or the snowpocalypses any more than you do, the color of the sky. You don't have any control over it. So why raise the premium for something that might happen or something that is just beyond your control?
Well, especially when these insurance companies are obviously making like record profits, right? And then they're refusing to cover services and to pay claims or doing minimal work and things like that. So, there's insurance on top of that cities and local areas for like smaller scale stuff that they do have for some of those things and for buildings, like especially city buildings and stuff like that. But there's resources and policies that go with that. I don't know the details about it. I just know they exist. So outside of like city and state funds to create our own form of funding for that when we have the money to do it, which maybe in a year or two after being in office, we'll maybe get things fixed enough that we can get that figured out. I don't think it's going to happen this year from what I've seen so far in the legislature. I think we're going to be digging a bigger hole, unfortunately, but it's getting change in, and I think everybody's chomping at the bit for these 2026 midterms. Because Iowa has flipped a lot of seats in special elections by record numbers. Mm-hmm. And I have no doubt that even if we don't take over the majority in the House or Senate, that as long as we get a Democratic governor and we close that gap, there's going to be a lot more work and there's going to be a lot more progress that we're going to bring to the table in after these midterm elections. Our hands are tied at this point as far as how our state is set up and the way that our legislature is set up.
Which is unfortunate. That is unfortunate that it depends on all of these political stars aligning to just for even the hope of something getting better for your state. You would think governor looks at what's going on in the state, a $1 billion deficit, and goes, I got to do something. I got to break with, the party line and do something. But she'll tell you our budget's amazing and we're thriving.
Well,
from your lips to God's ears. We've talked about the drinking water. That drinking water thing is that blows my mind. But okay, we've talked about Medicaid and that government agencies. People get really frustrated dealing with state agencies. How would your office actually help constituents cut through the red tape that they face when they're, when they call someone and they have to yell into the phone, representative? I know a lot of places, like I work for the Fed, this is no secret. And we've started using AI to answer people's phone calls, to answer their questions and get them to whatever department. I don't think I don't like it. I don't like it. I know they think it's more efficient, blah, blah, blah. You can get 1,000 more calls answered, but I don't like it. It just seems like more red tape, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we're creating barriers where maybe we need more connection. I mean, and you got to think about this. I'm a therapist. Like that's what I do. I'm in private practice. I'm a therapist. Like I work with the court systems. I work with our child welfare system. Like I'm one of those people complaining. Mm-hmm. And so, whether it's insurance or, trying to get a family services that they need or advocating for somebody, trying to access resources through our state funding. I mean, that is really a lot of what we have to do. And it's very difficult. I think staffing is an issue. I think we have major staffing issues and they're not properly funded. I think the funding they do have is poorly used. Okay. So a lot of our state services, a lot of our state offices for government, like our Department of Health and Human Services, was put together as one big department, and it used to be the Department of Public Health separate from our child welfare and our Medicaid were under another umbrella. They decided in 2019, they introduced that they were going to be actually merging those together under the same leadership and cutting back on cutting these very major departments with massive, employee numbers, and they've cut positions. Like they've cut a lot of agencies where they really need the manpower, and they've cut them back significantly. And we're starting to see that in like the lack of inspections being done in nursing homes, and the lack of like food safety, and just across the board, we're seeing major issues because they just don't have the manpower to do the job.
Mhm.
And so that's a big piece of it, is like we need bodies in the office to do these jobs and in the field to do these things. And we need to support that. But we also need to address wasteful spending and that fraud, waste, and abuse that our president likes to talk about and that our governor is in love with, that I don't think they understand where it's coming from.
Well, you would have to first investigate where it's coming from, right? And then you would have to
Right.
admit that maybe, I know politicians have a hard time admitting that they're part of the problem, or that something that they love dearly is costing them a lot of money, like at the federal level. We love the Department of, can I call it the Department of Defense? Whatever they're calling it now. We love that. We'll pump trillions and trillions of dollars into that and just neglect everything else.
Right.
Because we think as long as we're protected, everything will be fine. And it's like, but your people aren't healthy. They can't work. And if they can't work, they're not putting money into the economy. And if they're not putting money into the economy, then the economy's going to fail. What does it matter if you're protected?
Right.
What does it matter if you're, the shell is there? If ain't no yolk in the egg.
Well, yeah, they're wanting to like some of the legislation they have proposed right now, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, and even foster parents are against in our state, is that our Department of Health and Human Services, which is in charge of certifying foster families, wants to reduce the hours and the training they're required to go to and just fast track them through the system to get more foster families because we don't have enough.
No, that sounds like a bad idea.
It's a huge issue. The problem is we don't have appropriate training and supports for those foster families because of what they're taking on. And it's the red tape and the paperwork and the lack of response from our departments that are causing the frustration and why people don't want to be foster families. It's not because we have too many training hours. That's really not the problem. We're actually very low on that end compared to most other states. And obviously it's a thankless role that you're taking on as a foster family, but they're cutting back the hours thinking that's going to resolve things so they can just fast track as many people as possible into the foster care system. And we've had 2 major deaths at the hands of DHS for placement in foster care. And they actually had a committee that they were supposed to put together that our ombudsman's office required for outside independent review for foster care and for the system, and they just never did it.
Well, so when you're out canvassing and you're having to talk to people about this and you're presenting these problems to them and you're saying, hey, I can fix it. I've got this. I've got this. What is the response that you're receiving from people? Are they enthusiastic? Are they encouraged? Or are they like, yeah, right, government always says they're going to fix something and they never fix it?
Well, it's kind of a mixed reaction. But because of, I think, the results that we've seen in like I said, in a lot of the elections, these special elections that I had quite a few. As well as the elections we had this last fall for local, school boards and mayors and things like that have flipped significantly when it comes to the people there. And so the communities are already starting to speak out and push back. And the fact that they have been able to come through these elections and see the results and see the change, it's almost motivating people, and it's really lighting a fire within them to say, no, we're not done. We're not stopping. And so the advocacy and the energy that's just out there about it is even stronger than I think than we would anticipate it. You would expect when things feel so dire, that people would be, withdrawing and feel hopeless. But what we're seeing is a very different reaction. And I think we're seeing that around the country, but we're definitely seeing it here locally as well as throughout the state, where people are really picking up a lot of energy and a lot of hope, and they're not giving up. So I'm getting a very positive response, even from people who are not registered Democrats, people who are independent, or maybe more of that central Republican. They don't really identify with the far right. we're really getting a lot of people like kind of secretly coming in saying, hey, you know, I support this. I don't want to do this anymore.
Secretly.
Because everybody's suffering.
Right. And they can't share that news with their friends and family because, you know, there's a lot of ostracizing when it comes to political stances and opinions. But I don't know how people can look at everything we've talked about tonight and go, you know, I really don't agree with what's happening, but I can't tell anybody. It sounds like something you would want to loudly go, hey, look at what's happening. And it's our economy's in the crapper and you know, we got to do something about it. And it shouldn't matter where you stand at politically. That's something you can get behind no matter who you support, no matter what your politics are, rather. It's one of those, you know, you have to think bigger than the party. And I think in some states, they are doing that. Like Iowa, they're starting to think bigger than the party because the actual state is suffering. And when you are polarized, there's not really anything you can do about it because one group is still going to hold on to their politics over here that are hurting. And then this group over here wants to change, but they can't get in because everybody's supporting over here and they can't get in. So it's good to see that those changes are happening. I wish more of that would happen around the country. Like I said, I'm in Ohio and I have no idea what we're doing over here. But you mentioned earlier, and I wanted to ask you about this. I wanted to go back to this. You said that people are leaving the state to find jobs elsewhere. So when kids are going to college and they're graduating, are they just hot tailing it out of the state? And is it because the lack of job opportunities or the cost of home ownership? Or what do you think you could do at the state level to kind of stop some of that brain drain?
Well, we need to, so this wonderful Iowa Doge committee or, you know, like effort that our governor decided to put into place is actually coming after a lot of universities. Actually, there's a lot of legislation in place being proposed to, I guess, basically degrade the integrity of our academic institutions, post-secondary. And so, you know, I think supporting and funding community colleges appropriately, supporting skilled trades. Iowa is a major manufacturing state when it comes to a lot of the companies that are here. You know, and a lot of those companies are choosing, I mean, John Deere is here.
Right.
That's Iowa, right? That's massive. And, you know, so we have a lot of manufacturing based companies here. And the problem that I'm hearing and that we're seeing is that a lot of these companies, say like companies like Barilla or A&E is a big dairy producer here in Iowa. Like we have a lot of very large industry here with that. And they're struggling to find people, not to necessarily work on the line, but they're struggling to find people who can fix the machines. They can't find people to work in the industry that have the specific skills and the electrical knowledge and like the knowledge of robotics and the industry to be able to do the maintenance and to stick around. And so there's a lot of mid-level like jobs that are not being properly like trained and offered educationally in our state to support that for our industry. And so what's happening is that when people do come in and get the training, or when people do hire them in from outside and they move to Iowa, it doesn't take very long before they find a job somewhere else and they leave. So our manufacturing industry is a big piece of that. And we need to bring in more funding and more support for those programs that are your non-traditional degree plans or your certification programs. Because that is really a huge piece of a lot of the things that go on technology-wise. It's not just about the programming or the cybersecurity. It is about all of the physical hands-on stuff that AI itself can't do to make the things run or to make sure the physical product is able to operate off the robotics and the AI, right? So, you know, when the handle breaks, AI can't fix that. Somebody has to physically touch it and fix it. And we just don't have the people to go around to do that. So companies are finding it really hard to bring in the workforce and to be able to pay them well and to be able to retain them. And so they're looking at other opportunities outside of Iowa. When it comes to professionals, I mean, a lot of people are leaving Iowa because, like I said, we can't pay medical professionals well. We have two major medical schools in Iowa. The University of Iowa, which is a major teaching hospital, and then Des Moines University, which is here, and that's a major residency program. And so we have these programs in our state. We have wonderful, wonderful education for these medical professionals of all different licenses and types, but they all leave the state because there's no pay here and there's not really opportunity for a lot of them. There just isn't, like, there's the demand for services, but there isn't a way to do it and sustain. So that is kind of the case across the board with all industries, where people are just saying, hey, Iowa's economy is struggling. The housing is like, the property taxes and the housing is like skyrocketing. If I'm going to pay high housing, I'm going to go move to Denver, or I'm going to go to, you know, Atlanta or something, and I'll go get a job there and get paid 3 times the amount.
Right.
And go live there. And so that's exactly what's happening, is that our wages aren't competitive enough with the rest of the country for many different reasons, as well as we just can't find the workforce to keep them here to do that.
Wow. So you have 2 major medical schools and you still don't have the workforce to fill the doctor and even probably the nursing roles too, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So do you think that it should start in maybe high school, like as far as the non-traditional, you know, white collar jobs? Do you think it should start in high school with kind of steering kids towards these trades? And well, I mean, robotic engineering, that's not a trade, but it's still something that people don't really think about getting into because they don't know what they can do with that degree. Right. And if
you
they
actually
knew that
don't need a
these-
4-year degree for that. So
Okay.
working in that industry, really, I mean, it's skill based as well as training based. Des Moines Area Community College is a huge community college in the Des Moines area, but it also has many satellite campuses throughout the central area of Iowa.
Mhm.
And so they have a very high enrollment rate because of that. And so, like, their student body is huge. And I've taught as an adjunct for them in the social service area. And my husband actually is the program chair for robotics, engineering, industrial tech. And so he has an associate's degree. I mean, these are not these are not high level electronic engineering or like that. I mean, we need those jobs. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're important in a different way. But what we're talking about to work with in industry and manufacturing is, aside from the engineering piece that's designing things or doing that side of it, you need people that can actually fix the things. A lot of engineers are not taught that. Not that they couldn't do it, but they're just not taught that. That's not their focus. Their focus is innovation. Their focus isn't necessarily how to actually, like, put your hands on and do the thing in all programs. So while some may have that, or some may have some of that experience from working in those areas or those jobs, that's not the focus of those degree programs most of the time. And so they have a different importance from these hands-on skilled trades. And bringing in those programs where we teach high school students and give them maybe free tuition, and the schools count that as their school credit as well as their college credit. I mean, we do have cooperative programs with DMAC and other community colleges throughout Iowa to allow that. And so that is very popular. But one of the things we also want to make sure is that we are not replacing expectations and rigor, which is like the things you have to learn to get out of school to make sure you have critical thinking and stuff. We want to make sure we're still pushing that and not just replacing it. So it's working with high schools and working with our state Department of Education to make sure that we're still getting quality education in our schools and our public schools, and allowing these programs to come in and cooperate with high schools and supporting students in being able to do that, to get either ahead if they want to go on to other, 4 or, graduate level degrees, but to support industry and to really, like, make sure that we're not only promoting the 4-year baccalaureate, right?
Well, Erin, I mean, I don't know. If it were up to me, you would have the job. But I'm in Ohio. I can't vote in Iowa. So in these last few, because we have a few minutes left, convince me, pretend I am an undecided voter. Convince me to vote for you for the Iowa State House District 46 representative. Come on, let's see what you got.
So in our district, we have a lot of things that we have advantages of, but we also have a very diverse population when it comes to rural versus our urban and suburban areas. Okay, that it covers, and education is something we definitely need to address when it comes to properly funding our public schools and also maintaining our public services. And we can do that through bringing in alternative streams of revenue for our state that can help support that instead of take away from it. And in doing that, a lot of that money and revenue can also support other initiatives and help fill the gap for the deficit that we already have. There's no denying the fact that we have a lot of things that we need to make up for. And I'm not somebody who's going to sell you a promise that can't be fulfilled. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be upfront. I'm going to be real. And if I misstate something, I have no problem with being corrected as long as you don't do it inappropriately. So as long as you are appropriate, let's have a real conversation, because that's what I'm here to do, to learn from you of what you think that Iowans need, as well as our district, and what is your issue? What is your fix to the problem? Because I'm not going to have all the solutions. And I definitely have my own opinions about what I think is best, but that doesn't mean that it's the only way to do it. And so I really want to know and hear from you on what it is that you think is going to work and solutions that maybe I haven't thought of before.
Okay. And I just lost my train of thought. Good grief. I hate it when that happens. What was I going to say? Oh, okay. Your campaign is grassroots, right?
Yes.
Grassroots, 100%. You're not taking any big corporate PAC money, nothing like that.
Nope.
How's the fundraising going? How's that going?
It's been pretty steady. I mean, there's always a need for more. I think right now people are very split and they have a lot of fatigue financially.
Yeah.
We just got done with Christmas and we're going into, tax return season. So I think people are gearing up for, what it is that their next project is and feeling a little bit more comfortable with their pocketbooks. But it's fundraising and our earnings have been pretty steady. Obviously it's early in the campaign and we have a long time to go. So any contribution, whether it's $5 or $50 that people want to make, we're not going to turn it away.
Okay, and how can people support your campaign? Where can they find you?
So if you look up Act Blue and just put my last name in, Helleso, Helles as in Sam O, you can find me there and do a direct donation, or you can go to my website, which is h4hiowa.com, and there is a link to be able to donate through that.
Okay, you guys hear that? Go to the website, go to Act Blue. Also, you all can follow Erin. I'm going to follow Erin. Follow Erin on TikTok. Go to her social media, watch her videos. You all have sat here and listened to her platform. Amazing. She's amazing. She's amazing, y'all. So if you're in the district and you're thinking about sitting out this primary, don't do it. Go to the primary. Vote in the primary.
Yes, it is June 2nd. June 2nd is our primary. There's only one other candidate in our district at this point. There's still a few more weeks for people to file paperwork, but I haven't heard of anybody else. So there's only 2 of us for this district. So it's going to be a tough one, but June 2nd is when we vote in our primary.
Okay, so June 2nd is the primary. If you're in the district and you want to vote, go ahead and do it. Don't sit it out. Don't think you have until the general election. Don't wait until next November to make a decision. Also, again, thank you, Erin. I've had such a wonderful time talking to you. I feel like I didn't even get through all the questions because we're just sitting here talking. But
I'm a therapist. It's what I do.
And I appreciate it. I really do. We appreciate having you here. We actually, Erin and others, we have another town hall coming up. So this is why I have things all over the place. We have another town hall coming up and I don't have it written down. Wait a minute. I don't have it written down. Why don't I have it written down? I thought I had it written down. Oh, there it is. Okay, Shelby Campbell, Michigan District 13. She's running for U.S. House Rep for Michigan District 13. It's tomorrow, Saturday, 6:00 p.m. Eastern. If you're around, you want to join us, come back and join us so you can give questions to Shelby. She's from Michigan. We get Michigan not that often around here. We don't even get Iowa around here that often. So we appreciate it when we can get candidates from these states. So you guys show up tomorrow, 6:00 p.m. Eastern, for Shelby Campbell. And again, thank you so much, Erin, for being here with us and sharing your policy, your platform, your vision for the future of your district and your state. We wish you the best in your race, and for the people of Iowa, I wish you all the best. Honestly,
thank you very much.
I really do. My name is Ayanna. This is Our Vote Counts. Our Vote Counts is a nonpartisan coalition of citizens from across the country united by a shared commitment to empowering voters and elevating political candidates who embody integrity, inclusion, and accountability, like Erin. We are rooted in the experiences of educators, veterans, small business owners, students, and community advocates. Our Vote Counts reflects the power of unity across geography, race, and ideology. Our backgrounds may differ, but our purpose is the same, ensuring every voice is heard and every vote truly counts. We thank you for joining us this evening. Remember, your vote is your power. Everyone, take care. Have a good evening. Thanks again, Erin. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.